morning.
Good morning.
Thank you guys for coming along and joining our monthly series, Coffee with Jean. My name is Amber Kressel. I am the librarian here at the in this local history room and in our information services department.
So you're the lady who did the veterans thing last?
So I was there.
Her daughter.
Yes, I'm her daughter. Yep.
That was really nice. That was really nice.
Oh, awesome.
What you did.
Thank you.
It's a great place to go to.
Yes, it was. I'm going to introduce our other speakers for today. We've got Jean Lethko here. She has worked at the library for 60 years,
Wow.
Retired a little over a year ago, like 13 months ago, but I can't let her leave, and I really wanted to keep her coming back and sharing history with folks like y'all. So she comes back once a month and does really interesting topics and presents on them for us. And our other presenter is Doug. He is in the audience here as well with his lovely wife. He is our archivist here in the local history room and in our collections services as well. He is the one who gets to tinker with all of the stuff behind the scenes and all our resources, acquire new materials or new to us materials, because a lot of things we have are like old, right, and ancient, but they still are considered new to us. So he acquires those and makes sure that they get in the catalog appropriately so that we can access them and find them for folks like you when you want to do research. So yay, Jean and Doug, thank you for coming for this event. And today we're going to be talking about the 1491 Bible, which you can see with your own eyes back here. So there is the physical Bible. We can't let folks touch it yet, but after we do our little presentation, I'll clear stuff away so you can get up close to it and see it. But we are going to show pictures of it on the presentation, so you'll kind of get a sneak peek in there. And we'll tell you a little bit about it, or at least as much as we have discovered about it anyways. So thank you for coming. Does anyone have any questions before we get started?
One, everything was in Greek back in the day. So when did it convert to English? What year would that have been?
Well, actually, the Bible for many centuries was in Latin. St. Jerome in the 3rd or 4th century translated it. I understand he was pretty cranky, but if you'd spent 30 years translating the Bible, you've got the right to be cranky. So, and then I think the first English Bible is probably the King James edition, which is about 1602 or so, and by then, of course, England is Protestant, not Catholic. So you have the Protestants and the Catholics don't agree on which books are part of the Bible, but that's a topic for another discussion.
Yes. I want to check with all you back there. Can you see the screen okay? I want to move it so everyone can kind of see it. Does that look good for y'all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. All right. So yeah, great question. Any others before we get started? Okay. All right. Well, be prepared to ooh and ah at the incoming pictures. Woo! Yes. So this is the cover of our Latin Bible, and Miss Jean, what does that translate to?
Holy Bible, Latin. Sine loco means they don't know where it was printed because this is a cover. This is a replacement cover, so it's like a rebound library book, you know, which is appropriate. But because the title page is missing, we don't know for sure where it was published.
Yeah, so sine means like without,
Yeah.
and then loco means like location,
Location.
without
Yeah.
location, but published or created in
We don't know where.
1491.
They're basically saying it's the Bible. We don't know where they printed it.
So since it's 1491, Miss Jean is going to tell us what else was happening during 1491, and then we'll talk about this next date.
Okay, well, first of all, the New World hadn't been discovered by the Europeans yet. So the Indian civilizations such as Cahokia and other locations, they were doing just fine, thank you very much. They had their own cultures and they were active and flourishing. And then over in Europe, Michelangelo was working on his Madonna of the Stairs, which is a sculpture located in Florence. The British printer, William Caxton, died that year. He's, I think, considered about one of the earliest English printers. He also printed a Bible, but no, it's not that one. Henry VIII was born, for good or for bad. Isabella was Queen of Castile, and we know that there was some crazy Genoan talking to her probably about then trying to get money for some ships. He wanted to go on a cruise westward or something like that. Charles VIII was King of France. Maximilian I was the Holy Roman Empire of everything else in Europe, and Leonardo da Vinci was also being very active. Want me to do the next part or what?
So what was happening in 1880, the reason why that's an important date for us is because that was the year RPL, the library, got the book, the Bible. So, and we know that because of some acquisition notes on the front of the Bible as well. So we got the Bible in 1880, and what was happening in 1880?
Well, Edison had his first patent for his electric light bulb. The first cash register was invented in Dayton, Ohio. The first Boer War was beginning. 1880 was also the year of the 1880 federal census. That time of year, that decade again. And at that point, the population in Rockford was 13,129. And that was also the year the Nelson Knitting Company started in Rockford. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of what was happening then.
All right, so now let's get a view of the spine of the Bible. So we had the front cover and the spine. Yeah, it says, you know, the same thing as the front of the Bible, since it is a rebound. Top view. These pictures are all done by our archivist Doug. Side of Eugene. Is bringing you water. And then on the front cover of the picture, of the Bible is going to be this. So this is our acquisition label. So this is when we acquired it. It was the 8,500 book for RPL, and then it said year 1880. And then it says presented by the citizens of Rockford, which is basically a way of saying like a group of folks got together to, add this Bible to the collection, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute and what that means. I do believe this handwriting, we don't really know like who did it. Why? Obviously 1491 would be the year. We're not sure what 3108 means.
Oh, I do know what that means.
Oh, okay.
Okay, one of the sources talked about the Bible as being in Hall's 3108.
Yes.
3108. So I was able to go online and find a reproduction copy. Hall was a bookseller, and the entry for 3108 sometime in the early in the 1870s. It's part of a collection of Bibles, and all it says is 1491 Vulgate Bible. Well, I know that's the entry. I know that's what it's about. Thanks. Would have liked some more. But so that was just a book catalog entry. Like if you went to like a Sotheby's auction, you'd be given a catalog that would list the items and what they were and the item lots that you wanted to bid on. So somebody would have had to bid on the item.
Ooh, awesome. And for a closer look at the label on top of that page, we have, I can't remember, do we know why this got put on there? And then we were able to start finding the presence of this Bible in other materials. So obviously when we acquired it, it was like news in the city, but we found records of it in other materials. So as a group, we were doing research on it, and we were able to find notes of it in our historical library annual reports. Because sometimes when we acquired material, you know, they'd like to note and tell the community what was new, you know, how maybe their public funding was being spent. So Doug was able to locate our library annual report for 1880. So you can see here, this is a handwritten annual report. The secretary of the board of directors at our library board at that time was Elias Casper. That might be a name you have heard before. We even have our main hallway out here is named after him, the Elias Casper Gallery. He's kind of considered the father of the library. He was the secretary or the treasurer?
Secretary.
Secretary, okay. So to get a little closer look, we've got Doug here pointing out that it was the board meeting report it was the 8th annual report for June 1st of 1880. And then Doug is pointing out the notation where they talk about how we acquired the Bible. So here on the second line, third line, it says Elias Casper, who gave the Stowe's Livery of London. So we acquired that material at the same time as we acquired this Bible. So he gave the Stowe's Livery of London and a valuable Vulgate Bible, folio of 1491, bought by subscription of various gentlemen. So they're not very precise on how they got it. That would have been awesome to know. But apparently it was just a grouping of fine gentlemen who helped us get this Bible.
Yeah. Mary Rose was of the opinion that Elias Casper definitely had something to do with it, which we did verify. And
Yes.
he probably went around to all of his friends and said, "We've got a chance to buy this."
Give me $1.
A little more than $1.
Yes. So yes, we have she's not here today, but a regular local historian as well, Mary Rose. She loves Elias Casper, and so she had a suspicion that he helped get this Bible here, and so we were really excited to find proof of that. All right, another material that talks about this book is also going to be our catalog. So there's different types of catalogs over the years. Even before we used card catalogs, the library would produce and publish our catalog, which was a book that listed everything in our collection during that time. In 1886, we were able to pull our catalog from then, and it sure shows up there. So Doug was able to find it was on page 25 of the 1886 library catalog, that it notes that there is a Latin copy of the Vulgate with concordances of the Old and New Testament and prologues by St. Jerome and others, finely printed and rubricated, without place of publication, but with the date 1491 at the end of the Apocalypse. It has a thick quarto, calf leather cover, and clasps. So to get back to that Apocalypse part, you want to talk about how that is the last chapter, and we normally know it as
Revelation.
Yes. But we'll show you one of the last pictures on this slide. It'll show you the heading that says Apocalypse on it. It also mentions an asterisk in RRC. We aren't positive what that means, but we even looked through the catalog to see if they had abbreviations. You would think librarians would note all their abbreviations in the beginning of the book. We couldn't find it. But comparing it to the other decimal locations, we do believe it just means like reading room collection. It wouldn't have been in somewhere that was just on the shelf for folks to just pick off and use. You would have had to have like supervision to use it. So we would think the reading room collection would have been its home at that time. So next we decided to look in our newspapers to see if it was ever mentioned locally in the papers, to see if it got any airtime in the community. And lo and behold, it did. So we acquired it in 1880, and the first time it appears in the paper is 1881. So in the Rockford Register, Saturday, June 11th, 1881, it notes that the Bible is on loan for an exhibition. So it says that the following is a list of the most noticeable articles at the exhibition of curiosities and relics presented at the First Congregational Church last evening. And they had I think over 400 items on display for the community to come see. Item number 164 was a Bible that is 400 years old on loan from the public library. So I like to know that even though we had it here and its home is here, we were loaning it out to people in the community so that they could see it. So just within the first year of having it, we were loaning it out to folks. And this is not the only time it was on loan. So that's 1881. Then in 1928, it is on loan for a exhibit out at RC, which is Rockford College. So it says that book collectors, book lovers, people interested in books of any kind, early American enthusiasts, and art lovers will find things to suit their varied interests in the second book exhibit at Rockford College, which opens on Thursday in the college gymnasium, so on and so forth. And then they do note in this article that the Bible is printed in 1491 and is the most interesting and valuable book of the entire exhibit. It's a hand rubricated copy of the Vulgate Bible. But that was all they said about it, but it was really cool to see that, in 1880-ish, they're putting it on display, and 40-ish years later, they're still loaning it out so folks can see it in really cool book exhibits. Yes.
Nobody took a page out of it and stole it during all those years?
I'm hoping
Not that we know of.
that they kept it locked
that's
up.
Amazing.
I know.
I mean, really, that's amazing.
I'm assuming that when they had these valuable things out on display, they would have them in locked cases.
You assume that they wouldn't lend them to people either.
True. Usually I think if you're in the same profession, and you know how valuable it is, you use it with care. Yes, you had a
Okay,
question?
well, I think you already answered, but I was wondering if you knew what kind of restrictions were placed
No.
on it when it went out to be on display.
Yeah, we can't say for certain. We know what we practice here is keeping it all nice and protected, and having it in locked spaces.
And you wear gloves, right? I mean, you would wear gloves.
I don't, so I'm gonna let you talk about that.
The
Newspaper article was, so that one was in 28, flash forward 40-ish years, 1964. It appeared with a picture, which I think was great, although newspaper printing is not, the clearest, especially back in the 60s. But it was just telling the tale of the Bible. Bible printed centuries ago. The library owned Vulgate Bible, printed centuries ago, is shown open to pages of sections from Kings II. Initial letters, opening chapters, are bright red and were done by hand lettering. Type is large and easily legible for those who read Latin.
And does everyone remember what the word vulgate means?
I was
Okay,
gonna
it's
ask-
related to the word vulgar because at the time that Jerome was translating the Greek and Aramaic Bibles, books of the Bible, into Latin, Latin was the vulgar or the common tongue. Everybody was speaking Latin at that point, believe it or not. But, so it's just a word meaning common language of the day.
Yeah.
Although by the time this is printed, you of course have all the European languages going on, and some people knew Latin, and some people could say et cum spiritu tuo when the priest said Dominus vobiscum.
Oh gosh, I won't get into it. I was like, what does that mean, G?
The Lord be with you and with your spirit.
Not too long ago either.
No, some of us remember.
So then there was a large article associated with that picture. And it is going to tell us quite a bit about the Bible. So if you guys are okay with me reading it off the screen, I will do that since it's kind of far off. So this one was an article written by Ruth Marshall. It says that the Rockford Public Library owns a 473-year-old Bible printed a year before Columbus discovered America. You won't see it out on the shelves. Its home, apparently, ever since the present main library building was open, has been a shelf in a vault. And I was like, where was the vault? Do you know?
Probably in the, it would have been in the office.
Yeah.
It wasn't local history.
Yeah, no. But J.R. Chitwood, the library director, showing the Bible and some other volumes to this reporter last week, said he hopes to post some of them in a special exhibit soon. So again, another exhibit. Owning rare books is no particular asset to the public library, said Chitwood. He would rather see books circulating constantly, which would soon be the end of rare volumes, and see the rarities in special libraries for scholars' research. If a scholar happened to learn that the Rockford Library has this particular edition and came here, he would be welcome to study it. Chitwood doesn't anticipate this happening very often, though it may happen eventually after the Library of Congress finishes years of work listing the actual location of all rare books and manuscripts in the United States. This particular Bible, in Latin, is the Vulgate version, which for centuries has been the authorized Roman Catholic Bible, with prologues by St. Jerome and others, says the title page. It was printed in 1491, just 35 years after Johannes Gutenberg published the first Bible printed with his invention of movable type. This printing date puts it in the incunabula class for book collectors. The term, based on the Latin word for cradle, is used for all books printed prior to 1501, or in the infancy of printing. The place of publication is one of the pieces of information that do not appear. Between pages of the large volume are notes on it, and its condition by various people who have seen it from time to time. These point out that all of the large initial letters and rubrics were lettered by hand. So printed on a cradle, however, people had to go into every single page and put the initial, the letters, and the rubrics on there. One note says that the calf binding is of a later date than the inside of the volume. Another note signed by AMS says the leather binding on the oaken board with clasps is original. Chitwood reconciles the two notes by saying the book's cover probably is later than the printing, but what is meant is it has not been rebound. All the notes comment on the unusual fine condition of the large family-sized volume. The paper is good quality and still very white, with the black printing and the red illuminations showing up with utmost clarity, which I think still continues to this day.
Yeah.
Most viewers would agree with Chitwood's description. It is a beautiful book. Where did it come from? A bookmark in the front says simply that it was presented to the library in 1880 by citizens of Rockford. A note on the flyleaf indicates that it was owned by Heinrich Klins or Kling in 1854, and we'll show you that writing in a little bit on the presentation and talk about that. The other old books in the vault are neither quite as old nor in such fine condition as the Bible. Among them are the Geography Made Easy, printed in 1819 and autographed by its owner, the late Professor E.F. Barber, principal of Kent School, here for 49 years, and a longtime library board member. There's a 1599 edition of a Survey of London, so remember that popping up in the annual report?
Stowe's book.
Yes. Survey of London by Stowe, a noted antiquarian given to the library by Elias Casper, another well-known Rockford resident and a member of its original board. It has added interest because of the letters and the notes enclosed within its pages, which shows research done on the volume by Mrs. Helen Drew Richardson, former Rockford College professor who now lives in the Beloit, Wisconsin. She did extensive checking on how this edition varies from the 1598 first edition and commented on its rebinding and the trimming done